Well, we are live. Tony, it's been about 18 months. We've been talking about doing this. How are you tonight?
I'm good, man. Excited to get rolling.
Exciting. First things first, I know I talked to you, and we were going to talk about the World Juniors, but might as well start right off the bat and really piss you off. What happens with your Detroit Lions, man?
Hey, I don't even know what to say. 40 years of horribleness. It's funny. One of my good buddies today, because today's the date. 3 years ago, I believe Matt Patricia was hired, and one of my buddies posted a thing where I said, listen, I was no big Jim Caldwell fan by any means, but I would have rather kept Jim Caldwell over Matt Patricia, and it was the most inept thing I've ever seen in my life. Was watching him coach.
So it's all blamed on the coach then.
Yeah, we'll go with the coach for now. But just unbelievable. And what makes it 10 times worse is watching my bitter rival, the Green Bay Packers, who I just despise more than anything in life, playing lights out this year and probably going to the Super Bowl, which is a sickening thought to me.
So, and that probably leads us into our first topic. What we were going to talk about tonight is when it comes to, for some reason, I don't know, the power of social media. You were cheering Team USA last night in the World Juniors with you sitting on the Sioux Canada side and being the Canadian. Let's talk a little bit about the World Juniors, and then we'll lead into something about that trash can barrel also.
Yeah, so funny story about the World Juniors. I mean, I get grilled about this every year. Why does Bono hate Team Canada so much in the World Juniors? For those that don't know, for years I worked the penalty box for the Greyhounds, and I used to work in the visiting team's penalty box. And doing that, you get to meet a lot of the guys, you get to meet a lot of the players, you get to, you kind of get to see who the good guys are of the game, right? There was a few years back, there were two specific teams who came here, and they had 5 players on those two OHL teams. 5 players played at the World Juniors. They were the biggest jerks I've ever encountered in a penalty box before. They were rude. They were, chirping fans. They were derogatory. They were, just not good people. Seemed like not good people. I knew they were going to the World Juniors, and I knew I would have to cheer for these guys, and I just couldn't do it. I could not cheer for these spoiled, rich brats who drove me nuts. And again, I'm not saying all of them. It was just a group of 5 kids that year. And I couldn't do it, so I couldn't cheer for them. So I ended up cheering for Russia, I think, as a joke. And this team didn't even make the playoffs. Didn't even make the medal round. And as a result, it's just become a running joke now with me and my buddies, and a social media thing where I just have to chirp. And it seems like every time I go against Canada, that's what happens. So there's, like I said, there's a little bit of a story behind it. It's not that I hate Canada. I do have dual citizenship, so I am an American. So it was nice to see. That happen. But obviously, deep down, I'm always rooting for Canada. But you got to be that little bit of a troublemaker every so often, right?
And being a hockey city, we're based in Sault Ste. Marie. Being a hockey city, it just pisses people off even more, right?
Oh, it's hilarious. I love it. So now it's just become a joke, right? Where you can just upset people, and people get so riled up about it, and I think it's funny, right? And most people know, I think, that I'm not being too serious about it, but that's what it was. It all had to do with that one year, and I just couldn't bring myself to cheer for these kids. And again, I know that other people have echoed that sentiment from that season as well.
and it's something about, like I say, with the show we've talked about. It's something that we're going to talk about sports in the 705 area code, but at the same time, might touch in a little bit of the politics of sports or everything like that way. And mostly I'll go with sports, but again, we could talk totally on 705 sports, just so that people know out there who are listening. But the thing is, going back to the World Juniors last night, 2-0 loss. Do you think it had to do with just not a preparation, going in there too confident, or?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I thought a lot about this over the last few days, and I think what's really important is you got to think, right? There was no OHL season. There hasn't been an OHL season yet, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But these kids, from the States and everywhere else, they've been playing hockey all year, right? These Canadian boys, they were out there, busting their butts, playing unbelievable hockey. They didn't trail for once that entire tournament, right? So those kids deserve a heck of a lot of credit for what they did. The only thing was they didn't really, one could argue they didn't face a lot of adversity. So as soon as they were facing some adversity with the U.S., they didn't learn how to react to that as a team. So I felt like that was a big deal. But I also felt like, the fact that these kids haven't played competitive hockey all year, but they absolutely dominated a tournament, just goes to show how strong that team actually is.
And it's something that would, again, touching base, being from Sault Ste. Marie, we still did see two players wear their national flag when it comes to the Sioux Greyhounds with the Czech Republic. So there was a little bit of Sioux Greyhound connection this year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fun. I did think that I was really disappointed to see O'Rourke not make it for Team Canada. I thought he I love his game. I love his grit. He's one of my favorite players to watch. A skilled guy who's not afraid to mix it up. I remember watching him as a rookie, and he was 16 years old, and he was dropping the gloves with 19-year-olds. Like he wasn't even thinking twice about it, right? And I do think that grit and determination, maybe might have helped Canada in the back end. But again, for the most part, you can't really complain with how they played and how they did, really.
And it's something to touch base a little bit on the World Juniors. We did touch base off camera. One thing is your opinion on the championship photo and that barrel coming out.
Oh, I don't know if people have seen that yet, but I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to show our audience what we're referring to, because it was probably one of the most, I don't know, I don't have words for it, but here, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, last night before Team USA got their picture taken as a group, they paused the picture and went and got a garbage can with the Team Canada logo on it. So I'll show it to you right here in case you missed it.
And it's something while it's playing, yeah. It's something about. I don't want. I'm not saying some of the people in the media say classless, but when it comes, should the coaching staff have stopped that?
Yeah, do I think the coaching staff should have stopped it? Absolutely, I do. I don't see any reason for that at all. But you know what? We've seen this from the U.S. women's soccer team. We've seen this from the U.S. women's hockey team when they stomped on a Canadian flag after winning the gold medal. We've seen this happen a lot with the States, and I do think that the rivalry plays a huge factor into it. Obviously, U.S. Canadian hockey is just unbelievable, right? And it's arguably one of the best rivalries in sports, whether it's women or men. So, that's a big deal for those guys and for those kids. And, we don't know about all the backstories and things like that. But, I did think it was a little bit classless. But, again, the U.S. has a history of doing things like this.
And I'm not defending Canada or anything else. There has been stuff in the past that's happened. But I guess when it comes to stuff that does happen in the dressing room, Canadians, we don't open the door to it. So if we're doing it, we do it with it behind closed doors, and we leave behind closed doors. Where the U.S. likes to put, and I understand that red, white, and blue right up in front and say, "Hey, we were the best." They were the best last night, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just in sports. Anyone who's ever coached, who I've had the pleasure of coaching or coach against, I hate that shit. I don't like that stuff. I don't like the rubbing it in. I don't like the running up of scores. I don't like the running or the overall bragging of winning, right? You win with class, you lose with class, and that's how you should play, right? So I didn't enjoy that by any means. And to be honest with you, I didn't even see the garbage thing until this afternoon. I honestly saw it then. And I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. But you're right. As a coaching staff, that just reflects poorly on everybody, right? So I don't know. What do you think?
I feel the same. And what they say, when I've coached in the past, more along the hockey lines and stuff like that. Again, there's always little shots you take to the players behind closed doors as a coach, with the older players and stuff like that. But I feel the same. It's something, again, if they had in the dressing room, that's motivation. That's fine. But to bring it out into public, It's just not right. And the other thing I want to ask is when you say you don't like running up scores, what about Canada in the first couple games? Is that because their opponents were just that bad, or what do you do?
Yeah, see, it's funny. I had a big talk about this with a few people, and I hate that argument of, well, you have to score, you have to run up the score in this because you need position. It's the tiebreakers, goals for and against, those types of things. If you're Team Canada, it doesn't matter if you finish first or second. I know people will disagree with that, and people won't agree and all this. If you finish first or second, you're playing a weaker team. You're going to advance. You're going to go. I did not like the fact that Canada scored. I mean, I don't remember what the score was, but I know they scored at least 10. Was it 11? Like, anyway, they just blew them out of the water, right? And I don't like that. I've just never liked that.
And it's something there. Like I use Jamie Lambert said, garbage can thing blows my mind, and that's just again what the public is seeing too, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse with this, but it's just I can't comprehend it. I can't comprehend why the coaching staff would think, hey, this is okay.
And then that's exactly it. And like I say, we had how we were going to do it, but probably the easiest way here is when we're talking is because we're talking World Juniors. Let's talk a little bit about again being Sault Ste. Marie, the Sioux Greyhounds, but overall an OHL season. Is it getting too late to start the 2021 season? You sat in the penalty box, so you've dealt with the OHL and stuff like that on that. And your thoughts on what's happening there?
I have a really hard time believing there's going to be an OHL season this year. And the main reason being is it has to do with money. I truly believe this. I mean, I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but being up here in Sault Ste. Marie, it's no secret how expensive it is. To run the Sioux Greyhounds. We're the furthest north OHL team. We have to travel the most. We're staying in hotels more than any other team. Doing things like that. They need money in order to play hockey. So if you're going to say we're going to have an OHL season with no fans, I just don't understand how that can work. I don't understand how you can have an OHL season and not make money, because where's this cash going to come from, right? So I have a really, really tough time with that.
And it's something, but I go back. On the other hand, is something that we're going to talk about next week. More is about recruiting on different sports at different levels. But this week about when it comes to draftees, when it for the NHL, for instance, how do you do that when you don't have a season? Do you go back to the far season, or you use a player like in Sault Ste. Marie here, Keegan Stevenson, overager with Guelph, doesn't get a season? What happens there?
Yeah, see, great question. So I took some notes before we got down here, and that was one of my big questions, right? What would you do? One of the ideas I really liked and really tossed around, I'm curious to see what you think and people watching, but I would be open to next season opening it up to one or two more overage spots. Allow some of these 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, to come back again, or sorry, I guess the overagers now, but allow them to come back. How many times have we seen hockey players in their overage season, or their 19-year-old season, really develop and really flourish and become NHL, get contracts, those types of things? We see it all the time. So the fact that these kids are losing a year, it's not their fault. So open up an extra overage spot or two, take one or two less, 16 and 17-year-olds, and let these guys come back and play. That's one idea I had. I don't know. What did you think?
And that's something I've talked to a few people in the hockey circle, and I talked to actually a couple scouts a little while ago about this, and they're all like, "You can't do that. It's never been done." Everything else, well, COVID's friggin' never been done, so we've never shut the world down. And NCAA, that's a multi-billion-dollar business, is giving you extra year of eligibility. So if the NCAA at that level can do it, why can't the CHL?
Yeah. The one thing that I'm so excited about, though, about this NHL draft that I think is going to be absolutely exciting and fun is because let's just say that there's no season. Okay, let's hypothetically say the OHL season's done. Can you imagine the steals that are going to take place in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round? I mean, you're going to have guys, I guarantee it right now, you're going to have you're going to have people drafted in the 5th, 6th round who end up becoming 30 goal scorers in the NHL. Just because they're missed a year you don't know the development. You don't know how it's going. So I think it's going to be really difficult for scouts this year and for general managers and for people like that to put together a solid draft list. I really do.
And that trickles down to, we'll use in Sault Ste. Marie, for instance, Kyle Raftis with the Greyhounds. When it comes to the AAA midgets, yes, the Sioux 18, who's coached by Jamie Henderson here in Sault Ste. Marie, they're playing some type of a season, but in Southern Ontario, they're not playing anything. So at the OHL level or the CHL level, I would not want to be a general manager trying to pick players this year for the OHL draft in April.
And you look at a guy like Brant Clark, okay? Brant Clark, defenseman from the Barrie Colts, all right? Brant Clark on everyone's scouting list for next season was, if not going first overall, he was going second overall. He was a top 2 player. So I was doing a little bit of reading earlier today, and there's a writer from diebytheblades.com. His name's Austin Brass. I've read him a few times. And he actually said, and I love how he worded this. He said, he was my number 1 ranked player before the season, and the only reason he's fallen is because he hasn't played. So you have to think about that too, right? Now these players, they're going to get docked just for not playing. And that could be quite a bit of money, right? If you're an early first round pick or a mid first round pick, and because you don't play all season, you slip to the second or third round, that's quite a bit of money you're losing, right? So again, these poor kids, I would not want to be in their shoes.
And I go back, and we'll just touch base really fast on this, and we'll talk more about this in the next coming weeks. Again, the weekly show on Monday nights, but NHL starting soon, so they're doing it a little bit different because even more bigger and more money than the OHL.
Yeah,
but it's something, again, when it comes to the OHL, we have 3 American teams also. A little bit different out west. They have 5 teams, so they can actually do an American division. With 3 teams here, you can, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but. Could they? Is there a way to really figure? Again, we're not the politicians, we're not the business people in the OHL, but could they do a 3 to 4 month season?
I would like to think they could, but again, you got to look at it from this standpoint too, right? If I'm the Sioux Greyhounds and I was bidding for the Memorial Cup, do I want a 3 or 4 month season? If I have a chance to get the Memorial Cup, a legitimate chance to get the Memorial Cup, I might want to postpone this to next year, right? Because then you also have to look too, this Greyhound team next year is going to be a really strong team, and we can talk more about that. I think they're going to be one more year is going to make them a lot stronger than if they held it this year. So do I love the idea of a 3 or 4 month season? Not really. And I also don't think it's feasible. I just don't. And can you imagine if they had smaller divisions like they've talked about, and the Sioux played, they did 3 team divisions, and the Sioux played North Bay and Sudbury, 20 times? like that, I can't imagine that. Or Flint, Erie, and Saginaw playing each other, 25 times. Like that would just. Yeah.
But I use on the other hand, it's something, again, eliminate the Memorial Cup this year. Just have your league championship. It still gives the scouts and the GMs in the NHL or the AHL to see the players. At least they'll have some type of season, instead of going into usually it's early, but might be a late July draft to at least give them exposure. I use 3 teams a little hard. Maybe you only have a 25 game season, so you play 4 in 4 in Erie and 4 in Saginaw. So even if it's 25, 30 games, at least it's something, right?
I also think that, COVID's COVID, but I also think that COVID, the fact that we're seeing record numbers daily, the fact that the vaccinations aren't coming out and the vaccinations aren't being delivered and stuck in arms at the rate that we originally had hoped and thought it might. I don't see how you can do it. Not with the way things are going right now. I mean, the only other thing I thought about when I was doing this is, say things go really well by May, maybe you have a 10 game exhibition season or something like that, right? And it's just exhibition games to get these kids that exposure.
The other thing is go ahead.
No, I was just saying, man, can you imagine how good that hockey would be though? If there was a 10 game exhibition, hey, this is your last chance to show off to the scouts. Those players are going to go all out.
And that's, I say, Sault Ste. Marie, and I'm just using a 12 game because it's only 3 teams, right? But 12 games, 2 there, 2 here, because they can, like the midgets, for instance, go down and play 4 games in one day, or 2 games and 2 games, but 4 games through the whole team.
Yep.
So if they went down to Sudbury for the day, North Bay for the day, played the game, came back, do a 12-game season, again, 12 games would be very entertaining. And we're going to talk a little bit about the NOJHL tonight, but they did it without body contact, and I thought, oh my God, terrible hockey. It's been decent hockey.
Oh, it has, absolutely. So I don't know. I'm interested. I think it's going to be exciting if there is a season, and obviously, I mean, in this, especially being in the Sioux, you know, I'm a huge. Obviously, I work for Canadian Mental Health, so I have a big. You know, that's obviously a big deal in to me and mental health, and to see people's mental health right now, it's really struggling. And I do think that some hockey or getting out of the house or doing something like that would really help.
And that's exactly it. And I go back again. This is on Saultsports and being right now brought to you by Saultsports. And that's one thing is Bob Davies, who does all my photography, and you know Bob well, is we did the 4 midget games and we had over close to 5,000 views for 4 1 hour midget games, and we usually average maybe 3,000 to 4,000 pictures, and we average 60,000 view pictures. So it's just using as an example. People are begging and looking for any. We had over 2,000 views on our figure skating view live streams,
which is awesome.
People, again, great. I love figure skating. It's not tapped enough, like viewed, but people are willing. If we went and played lawn darts right now, people would watch it because of there's nothing going on.
Yeah, I completely agree. So
and the next topic in this one here, again, we could probably go forever on this one, but not just in Sault Ste. Marie, but when it comes to, again, our dear old COVID, when it comes to high school and collegiate sports and being canceled. And prime example we'll use, because we're in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'll use a kid I know is Ryan Barnes from Cora, and I know his family well, but this year was his year to hopefully get some exposure, and we understand why it was canceled. But when it comes to high school sports, that's, again, with the mental health and everything. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, if we're going to use Ryan as a specific example, you know, I've had the privilege of watching Ryan develop since he was, since he started playing football in Sioux Minor. I've seen him go from an unbelievable defensive tackle. I've seen him play O-line. I've seen him play running back. You know, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that he'd end up being a quarterback. And but he's amazing. So, you know, he's a really good quarterback, and he's a good player, and he's you know, comes from a good family. So it's unfortunate for kids like that, because you're right. You know, he was playing last year behind you know, arguably one of the best quarterbacks to ever come out of Sault Ste. Marie, and Jordan Robinson Wright. So he had no chance to get out and play and show off his skills. Now, with, you know, this was his coming out party. This was going to be the Brian Barnes coming out party, and I was really excited to watch it. Actually, I was excited to see what he could do. Right, he had a lot of people to, you know, he had a lot of people that he wanted to show that he could do this, and now he doesn't get that chance. Right, so I'm curious to see what happens with a player like that. But I really do feel bad for kids in that situation.
And then that's where we talked about when it comes to the NCAA, a little bit different when it comes to the college and the NCAA. But, and again, an extra year. High school kids can take an extra year now because they call it, again, just they call it the 1 extra year, now victory lap or whatever, to do that 5th year. Again, some exposure, sometimes credits, and to get their averages up. So you can have that extra year there. But at the same time, and it's not just football in this city or in the province, there's also soccer, hockey. There's so many other sports that these kids, again, education's first in high school, but at the same time, I've always said to my kids, if you can get sports along with your education, that's huge. And again, it's something couldn't imagine being a recruiter right now for anything because of what's happening.
It's also a money issue too, right? I mean, these kids, these kids want to go to school, they want to learn, but I mean, you know how expensive university is nowadays. So a kid like Barnes, who, again, I'm going to keep using him as the example just because we mentioned him earlier, but a kid like him, there's not a doubt in my mind that he could make a team, you know, in CIS. So will he get that chance? Will he get that same offer that he could have gotten, right? So it's really hard, right? You know, going away to university can be expensive, and a $5,000 offer is pretty nice. Will those kids get that opportunity now, not being able to go play in bowl games, not being able to go to Toronto, with no SaberCat season, no, things like that? Those opportunities are going to be less and less.
And then that's exactly it. And with Saultsports, I do a lot of work with Algoma University, and you did some with us this year at Algoma. And when it comes to collegiate, I was talking to their coaches the other day, their soccer women's coach Neil Ovey and Etienne Jacquette, the men's basketball coach, and Ryan Veitcher, the women's basketball coach. They're one of the only schools in the OUA that their student athletes are actually still coming and practicing. So It's something, it's very rare, but again, it shows how much interest they have. But even at the OUA level, the potential's still there. You might not end up making the NBA, but there's still, for basketball, you can go overseas. Soccer, you can go overseas. So when it comes to collegiate, there are still opportunities, but again, it's even throwing like I say, a big stopping when it comes to the OUA, right?
A wrench in that. No, absolutely. So I mean, the whole thing is frustrating to me. The whole thing is bothering me, and I really do feel bad for these kids. I mean, it is what it is right now, and that's what we keep saying. But we're gonna have to just wait and see. I mean, my only hope for a kid like for Ryan and for these. What's the other big one is soccer up here, right? I mean, a few kids get soccer scholarships. A lot of girls, a lot of young ladies get hockey scholarships to the States, those types of things. And who knows if that's going to happen now, right? I just hope they get every opportunity possible to get that, because it's not their fault, it's not the kids' fault, and they need to do that.
And that's something, again, like you brought up about soccer and everything else, and that was my next point when we're talking about, and this might ruffle little feathers here, is about kids leaving Northern Ontario. Is it inner city politics in the sports city, or is the grass greener on the other side? I don't think it's our coaching, like we talked about off camera. The coaching here is phenomenal, but is it politics? People threatening other people with lawsuits? What do you think when it comes to kids leaving and the reason behind that? Again, we could do probably another show on that alone, but just a touch base right now.
Yeah, I have a lot. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. This one. I mean, if I use myself for an example, right? I look back at myself, and there was talk. My family wanted to move to the States when I was in high school, right? And I just refused because I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave my friends. I didn't want to leave my team. I knew we had, I just didn't want to go. I admire these kids who want to go away. I do. I think it takes a lot of guts. I think it takes. It's a hard decision that I don't think I could have made when I was that age, going away, at 15, 14, sometimes even 13, right? I don't think I could have done it. But one thing that I firmly do believe, and I hear this all the time, is, there's better coaches in Southern Ontario. There's, they get better coaching, they get better direction. I don't believe that at all. I mean, I look through the ranks in the stew. I look everywhere, right? I look at basketball. You mentioned Vitry, you mentioned, Juvenati. We have all sorts of good coaches up here. Then you look at football. We have, Tom Annett, Jim Monaco, Orzetti. We have a lot of great coaches in that too. Soccer has good coaches. Hockey, amazing coaches. We have, NHL guys on almost every staff, it seems like. So we do have the coaches. What I think the issue is the exposure. I really do think people leave for the exposure. And if I could use a couple people as an example, you and I had the pleasure of talking to Ryan Hunter not long ago, won a Super Bowl, with the Kansas City Chiefs last year. And, he said it himself. He said, hey, he moved to the States in high school for exposure. Right. And just some other people that off the top of my head, Drew Viotto, another Sault Ste. Marie kid, decided, made a real tough decision to, go play football down in the Detroit area. And the kid has D1 scholarship offers, and it's all based on exposure. Right. And he's getting that exposure down there. I also think about Chase McIntyre. Chase McIntyre played here for years. He went to Southern Ontario, didn't get drafted into the OHL. But Chase, was one of the few kids to get drafted in the, I think, what is it, the 18-year-old draft? Is that what it's called? The
overage, not the overage, but
he got drafted.
The U18 draft for the OHL,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. But he got drafted, right? And he was, they only have 3 rounds, and the kid was drafted there, right? So he got to go to Peterborough. So, I do think the exposure is the big deal. And it kind of rubs me the wrong way, actually, when people say they're leaving for coaching, because I think we have outstanding coaches in this city in all sports, and I think they all do a great job, and they try and better their craft. And that's all you can ask for, right? We have people who are involved with Basketball Canada. We have people involved with Football Canada, Hockey Canada. I'm assuming that there's people with soccer. I don't know much about soccer, unfortunately, here in town. That's one of the few sports I never played. But, we have coaches here that are good.
Now, and this, again, going to ruffle feathers, but my wife keeps on telling me, don't say it, you're going to piss people off. Are politics driving kids out of town when it comes to the politics within associations? Yeah,
I think every situation is different.
That happens everywhere, but
I really do.
And community.
I do think it happens everywhere. There's not a doubt in my mind it happens everywhere. Does it happen in the Sioux? Absolutely, it happens in the Sioux. But I don't think it's a unique situation, right? And I also, I'm a coach, so I like to give coaches the benefit of the doubt. I always have. I always will. I don't think that coaches are doing things to intentionally hurt kids. I really don't. I don't think that coaches are going out of their way to say, hey, I want to screw this kid. Does it happen? People can argue that it does. I don't believe that coaches do that. I think that when you coach, it's a selfless act, and you're doing it for other people as well. You want to make people better. And if you're out there to try and screw a kid over or trying to hinder a kid's development, I personally just think that you shouldn't coach. You're in the wrong division.
And that's exactly it. And that's where there's few far in between, even in Sault Ste. Marie, that have moved on. But again, even when it doesn't belong in the professional level, but that's where it happens, right? Politics, again, at that level, but at the amateur level,
yeah,
and high school level, even collegiate level, we don't need the politics.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I want to know your take on this. So I did some thinking about this, and I'd love to know what other people think.
Oh, you thinking, Bono? That's going to be that's hard there.
It's amazing, right? It's hard to think with this maple leaf on my head. But I do think that when
an American flag, you'd be sitting in the garbage can.
And I got my Lions logo back there too. I do think, and this is an important point. I really think this is something that we don't often think about. But when you go away, say you go away at 13, 14, 15, 16, years old, I think you really mature during those years. I really do. I think it forces you to grow up. You're away from your parents. You do things like that. You're able to grow up a little bit. When you see kids go away at 17, 18, 19 years old, it's their first time away from their family. It's their first time away from mom and dad. Oh, I can party. I can go to the bar. I don't have to, I can go drink every night, or I can, you can do all those things. And you're so used to it that, so you're just not used to the freedom, right? So I do think that it is an advantage that for people to go away, early on, because I do think that they grow up. And I also think, and I know this might be a little controversial, but when you look at kids, and I was looking at quite a few teams in the OHL. When you look at hometown kids that play for their hometown team, okay, I'm not going to say names specifically, but when you see kids who play for their hometown OHL team, very rarely do those kids have success in the NHL. And I think there is a little bit of not going away. These kids haven't gone away. So the first time some of these kids are going away are when they're millionaires, 19 years old, playing in the NHL, getting a contract. They got all this money. They're out on their own, and they want to party it up, and they want to do stuff, right? So I do think that we see that a lot. So I actually think there's a lot of merit in going away when you're younger.
And that's something like, again, Jamie Lambert, watching, give us some voice on his opinion. I lived across the world in Denmark, played Division I at 17 for the Odessa Bulldogs, and it made me a lot more mature. So for him, he went overseas. It's something that worked out for him. And before I get anywhere else, I got to put this comment in because Chris Carr keeps on taking shots at you here, Tony. Hey, Jay, you should talk more about volunteering in sports. And the other one with Chris Carr says it's very scary to have Tony on the show. So I just had to put that out there.
And you know what? If you actually look at something, because Chris, we're coming to this. Okay, Chris, we're coming to the NOJHL. And if you look what I wrote on my notes about the Thunderbirds, I wrote, love the coaching staff, and I included your name. So, Chris, because of that, Chris, I'm going to do this. And that's for you, Chris. So,
but going back, Chris Carr in sports, he volunteers for everything, right?
I've known, so funny, I've known Chris since I was 10 years old. He lived around the corner from me. And funny story about Chris.
Sorry to interrupt. A funny story. All I want is Chris Carr to come and paint my house, and he does not paint.
So great Chris Carr story. So Chris Carr got me in trouble when I was 10 or 11 years old because he was always the older kid, and he would sit up top in his room, and he blared out this. This is when Beverly Hills 90210 was a big deal. And he blared out this Beverly Hills 90210 trash song. And it had to do with like Brenda and Dylan getting naked in the pool. And I just remember that beat from Chris. And anyway, I sang that at my house once when I was a kid. And I grew up in a Catholic home. Oh, man, I got in trouble for that. So thanks, Chris.
leave it up to Chris, right? But anybody who knows him, great guy, would do anything for you.
Absolutely. Good dude.
Give him Tim Hortons coffee and donut, and he'll do anything for you.
Absolutely. Yep. So,
again, talking about that is, again, we talked about the OHL season a little bit here. I know you don't follow it a lot. You are a hockey person. You follow hockey, though, is the NOJHL. They are having a season. They played Blind River first. Then they played Espanola. And if we ever get out of this lockout or shutdown, they're playing Rayside. They play 4 to 6 games within a 10-day period, 2-week period. If you can play a team 4 to 6 times in 10 days, why can't you just alternate, in my opinion, first alternate within those 3 teams so you're not playing like a playoff thing? Do you think that's hindering and causing too much rivalry?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. I knew you were going to go there, and I've been thinking about that quite a bit today. I love rivalry building, especially in the NOJHL. I think that's huge. I really do. I think that's what makes it exciting to watch. A prime example is, when the Sioux Thunderbirds, do I go to all the Thunderbird games? Not necessarily. I think I go to every Sioux Thunderbird, Sioux Eagle game, especially the ones across the river. Those games are just amazing.
It's because you can have a beer. That's why.
Yeah, at the Puller. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. That helps. But yeah, I think it's amazing. Like I do. Like I love those rivalries. And one thing that I do think that needs to be said is we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Blind River Beavers and the job that Kyle Brick's doing out there. I was looking at some stats today. And, they have 4 players in the top 30 in scoring, right? And in comparison to that, the Sioux Thunderbirds have 1. Now I do think that there's a reason for that too, which we could talk about as well. But I do think that, the Blind River Beavers deserve a heck of a lot of credit. And I'm actually excited to watch them play. I mean, they got some great players on that team. Yeah, I'm excited to see them. And it's nice to see a town, it's nice to see a city like Blind River really succeed and have success there, because I know how much they love that organization and they love that team. So good for them. It's nice to see.
But I actually, when I did an interview with Kyle, I think after the first or second game, and I asked Kyle directly out, and it's not against his organization or his players, but young coach, roster this year, smaller roster this year. If you were to bring the contact back in that we're not having during this modified COVID, would you see the 4 players at that high scoring?
Yep. Good question. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to tell, right? I do think that the no contact obviously helps the more skilled teams, but that's a discussion for another day, because in my opinion, hockey isn't hockey without contact. It's a totally separate game. And I'd actually be curious, I'd be curious to see how the officials call it too, right? Because from what I've heard through some meetings and some people I've spoke to, they're calling this no contact rule different all throughout the North. Sudbury is extremely strict on it, extremely strict. whereas our officials here are a little bit more lenient on it. And both officials aren't wrong. It's just the way that they're interpreting the rule and seeing the rule, right? So I think that that's important.
And that's exactly it. Now, I'll use it as an example. Over Christmas, I saw my brother. I again have 4 brothers, but my one brother, Josh. People who do know in the hockey, Josh is my brother, not my son, who people think some people do is. But he's done more Blind River games this year than Thunderbird games. And I asked him, he doesn't say a lot because, again, being a referee, he keeps it to the way where he's supposed to. But I said, modified hockey, is it hard to call? And he said, you're goddamn right. And that's a prime example. Even for the players, like I asked Denny Lambert and Jeremy Stevenson to coach it, and he goes, it's totally different. So
I coach. I just coach midget B here in town, and we're just doing the scrimmages, scrimmage idea. And it's the same thing. I mean, I feel so bad for those officials. Those officials, what do you call? You could call a penalty every play. It's hockey. You're going to bump into people. You're going to, contact is inevitable. It's going to happen. So I don't envy the job of those officials at all. It's tough.
But I go back the other way. I've been to, like, say, 2 Espanola games, 2 Blind River games. The only problem I have, and I might, like, say, take a little bit of heat from this from the NOJHL. But the thing is they're taking, and then I again asked my brother this, and he wouldn't have voiced his opinion on it. Is, in my opinion, the goalies are getting a little bit too roughed up. They're getting liberties because right now, usually if you get kicked, you fight, and before the last 10 minutes, you get that game. Yeah. Usually after the last 10 minutes, you get the next game.
Yep.
You fight right now, it's 6-game suspension. So really? I understand the extreme because of COVID.
Yeah.
But me as a little bit more of the rougher type of guy, I'm going to take liberties on the goalie. Yeah. But as a coach, Denny Lambert, Jeremy Stevenson, Kyle Brick, how do you deal with that, in your opinion, coming from a coach's point of view, is to stop that? Because all you're going to get is 2 minutes, or you're going to get kicked out of the game for roughing somebody up.
I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions. I really am. Because I don't know
what way to answer it.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I mean, like, I think about that all the time because I'm the same way, right? I'm, stay off the goalie. If you touch the goalie, there's hell to pay. But it is difficult. I don't know. It's hard because, do you sacrifice, because, can you imagine? I mean, I haven't been to a game yet this year, and I wish I would, because I can only imagine what the power plays and penalty kills are like with no contact. It's almost like the power play would just have the puck all day long in the offensive zone, because what can you do as a defensive player?
And I'll use as an example, and it was like watching the U.S. last night in the Canadian end.
Yeah.
It was they were just running around. And I'll be honest, I'm a Canadian all through and through, but even when U.S. was in the Canadian end last night, 5-on-5, still looked like Canada was short.
Yeah.
But that's what it's looking at the junior A level, right? But going back to junior A level, in southwestern Ontario, they were playing into the lockdown, and they were actually had to wear one of these under their hockey eye-tech masks. So could you imagine that?
Yeah, trying to breathe. Yeah, I don't know. I really do think that it's a good thing people are playing sports in any capacity. I'm trying not to be critical. I'm trying not to be critical of the people who make the decisions, because I do feel like their hands are tied. I feel like they're trying to do what's best for the sport. But if anything happens, if there's an outbreak, if there's something, people are going to say, well, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? It's a scary and a difficult situation to be in for those who are in power.
At least I got to say, when you say in power, at least I wasn't in the Capitol building today.
Unbelievable.
I know we talk more sports, but I just had to throw that in there when it came to being. Yeah.
There's lots I could say on that topic.
That's where we say the Canadian flag. And again, I love the States. A lot of friends in the States. But thank God, like, again, when it comes to control, there was no control today.
No, it was insane. I agree.
Maybe they're celebrating the gold medal.
It's a good way to look at it. But, I don't know. It's scary. Once we're done here, I'm going back to watching it because I'm fascinated to see where we're at now. So I don't know. The one other thing I wanted to talk about quickly here was the Thunderbirds a little bit. Jay, I know that you've been involved with the Thunderbirds and done a lot with them. What's your take on the Thunderbirds this year? On the changes to the roster, those types of things. Just to give you, so I was looking at the rosters, and the Thunderbirds, along with a whole new coaching staff, the Thunderbirds only have 7 returning players. 7 returning players. So it's a whole new team. It's a whole different roster. It's a whole different dynamic from what it was when Parko was there. So what are your views on that? Or Panko, sorry, was there. What are your thoughts?
I do like this year, and again, a lot of younger kids, first year kids, a lot of locals. So it's really nice to see two returning from the States who didn't even get to go home for Christmas. So it's something when it comes to the local kids. Again, they're not all seeing the ice time, but when it comes to returnees, also, I think the COVID has also killed that a little bit too. When it comes to, because again, they can have 6 Americans and they only have 2. Yeah. So kids coming over for, again, the deadline's been pushed off till February, but you got to come in. You got to quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah.
And then a parent is saying, and again, I don't know what they're charging or whatever else, but going to pay for my kid to go up and play 6 games in 14 days, where usually they play 8 to 10 games. So I think a lot of times when it comes to returnees this year, it's not the organization, it's more of what's happening. Incredible coaching staff. I use my kids are 22 and 26, and they said, thank God they weren't there when my friends were there, because you're dealing with police officers and firemen. How much more disciplined people do you want when it comes to coaching staff?
Yeah, so and that was where I wanted to go. So for those that aren't too familiar, Denny Lambert,
except Chris Carr, we'll eliminate him.
Right, I'm crossing him out. Denny Lambert, Gary is the head coach, and then he put together a staff of Gary Roach, Mickey Sartorello, Jeremy Stevenson, Aiden Wright, and Dale Bono as the equipment manager. So you look at that staff, you have an NHL player on that staff. You have an OHL player on that staff.
Well, you have 2 NHL players.
2 ex-NHL players and 2 ex-OHL players, one who won a Memorial Cup, right? So
NCAA.
Yeah, absolutely. NCAA. So absolutely an amazing coaching staff, and good for them. I mean, I'm impressed to see what the Thunderbirds did. I think that the culture needed to change or get a reboot there, and I do think that bringing in a guy like Denny Lambert is a great move. Mickey Sartorello, we talked a little bit about him. Played for Saginaw. Quick little story about him. I don't even know if he'll remember this, but
was he in the penalty box at all with you?
Oh yeah. So he played for Saginaw, and one of his first games here in the Sioux, he got a penalty, and he was sitting next to me, and he was really focused on the game, so I didn't want to bother him too much. You kind of get that. So I just looked over and I said, I think I said something along the lines of, hey, welcome home, or, congratulations, or something along those lines. And he just kind of said, thanks. And then he kind of went back into the game, and he was focused on the game, and he was watching, and he was just sitting in the box. And all of a sudden he mumbled under his breath. He goes, "This is so cool." So, just getting a chance to see that and see him playing for, against the Sioux Greyhounds and being there. I'll always remember that about Mickey, and, great guy. Was really impressed by him. And I think he got a little bit of a raw deal in Saginaw, but it was amazing. Oh, man, watching him play for that Thunderbirds team when they won the Dudley Cup, the Dudley Hewitt, was some of the best hockey I'd ever seen. And he was a man amongst boys. He completely dominated that league. And I don't know if players on that Thunderbirds team now will know or appreciate how good he was, but holy cow, no one could touch the guy.
And that's where, to bring up a little bit differently, he, as a teenager, he might take it the wrong way, but 16-year-old Connor Toms, he's a boy among men when it comes to 16-year-old, but he's playing like he's a 20-year-old. Like, I was talking to his dad, Jeff, who played pro hockey, and I said, how's Connor liking it? He goes, he's loving it. Thing is, probably, and I'm not saying for sure, if there's an OHL season, the Thunderbirds might not have him.
Yeah.
but he's doing one hell of a job with the Thunderbirds. And Jeff, I've talked to Jeff. Jeff says he's just loving it.
And that's awesome. I mean, Connor Toms is leading the Thunderbirds in scoring this year with I believe he's got 8 points in 8 games. So he's leading that team in scoring as a 16-year-old, right? Like that just doesn't happen. And a 16-year-old defenseman on top of that, right? But the Thunderbirds are doing well this year for the turnover they had for the first year. I believe they're in third place right now, and they're right in the mix. And that's just a credit to that coaching staff. You can't say enough good things about them.
And that's what when I did an interview with Denny after one of the games, and I asked him about Connor and he goes, he sees the ice totally different than most players, and he goes, he sees it totally different than I did, and I said to him, I'm like, Denny, yeah, I know he sees it totally different than you because you can't from the penalty box. Yeah. And that's the way Denny played, right? Yeah, but Denny's very impressed. The coaching staff's very impressed, not just with him, impressed with a lot of the young rookies and the veterans. They got 2 new goaltenders this year. Like I said, two out-of-town goaltenders. So right from the back end, right straight through, there's a lot of new faces.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I know. It's exciting this year. I think the Thunderbirds hit a home run when they hired this coaching staff, and I put a lot of weight on that coaching staff and their dedication and how they're going to do this year. So like I said, it might be a process this year. We'll see how it goes, but I think the future is ridiculously bright for the Thunderbirds, and I can't wait to get across and have a beer at the Puller and watch those two teams go at it as usual.
and it's funny, and this is, again, I know it's junior hockey, but people who I know and who know me, we joke around as when it comes to Blind River and the Sioux, and people always joke when you see, again, I see the behind the scenes, and you have Brick and Dylan King yelling at Porco and DeSano's brothers on the roster, and that everybody says, well, if King ever lost it, he would rip anybody apart. I actually said to Danny Lambert off the record, I'm like, now we got heavyweights. Not that it would ever happen, but we got heavyweights behind both benches now. When it comes to coaches, we may not see as much yelling.
Yeah, be a little calmer, you'd think.
Yeah, I like Dylan, but just to give him a shot, as if it ever came to boxing gloves or whatever else with coaches, Dylan was the heavyweight until we got the roster, the coaching staff this year, the Thunderbirds.
That's funny. One of my actually, when I saw that, I didn't even realize that Jeremy Stevenson was coaching the Thunderbirds this year or helping out with them. And every time I see his name, I always think about this. This is hilarious. Back when Tyler Kennedy was playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and this is when they won the Stanley Cup. So they made the Stanley Cup finals the one year, and they would do player profiles on the screen, right? And it would show the player, and then it would show, they'd ask them a bunch of questions, and then it'd say their favorite NHL player growing up, right? So you would see, people were, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, Tyler Kennedy's name comes up, and his favorite NHL player growing up was Jeremy Stevenson.
and they're probably fishing buddies.
Exactly. So it was good. I like that. So,
I'm sure Jeremy probably paid him to do it though. So.
Yeah. Hey, it's a great way to get your name out there.
But that's going back again. It's something where we're going to do eventually down the line. Where are they now? But coming back to not the COVID, but the amount of players, not just in hockey, but the amount of players, football, CFL, the players that have moved on from this city to the sports is something we can talk about down the line. And there's a lot there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think we have a good platform here, and I do think that we can touch upon, keep touching upon some subjects that really affect Sault Ste. Marie and affect the sports here. And yeah, I'm excited to bring in some guests every week and talk to some people. And I do think that this platform will be really positive for everyone. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun.
And last thing, and again, there's something to touch base is it's more recreational. But in Sault Ste. Marie, your thoughts on the mill, the new arena that we have down there?
Oh, I can't wait to get there. I really enjoy the Oval. I really enjoy getting out. my attitude, I don't know if anyone's ever been to the a little plug here for out at Silver Creek, but the skating rink at Silver Creek, they have an indoor, in the summer they have the dining area there, and in the winter they put a rink in there. I've always argued that's the best rink in Sault Ste. Marie. It's a small one. It's just great. This Mill Market, though, it almost takes it to another level. I'm really excited to see it. I think that down the road, it'd be really neat to see some games there. I think it'd be cool to see some, can you imagine like the Thunderbirds or something having a game out there? I think that would be unbelievable. So I'm excited to see what happens there. I want to get out there. Obviously, with this weather we're having right now, we won't be skating anytime soon because it's going to kill the outdoor rinks, which is frustrating because it's nice to see the outdoor rinks packed right now. But yeah, I think it's a beautiful rink, and I can't wait to check it out.
And that's something that I mentioned it to Jerry Linscomb with the Greyhounds and Trevor Zachary with the Thunderbirds. Unfortunately, even unofficially, they're not supposed to do it like head to head because of reasons. But even if the Greyhounds went down for a couple hours and did like a little 3-on-3 mini tournament amongst their own selves, and the Thunderbirds the same,
that'd be cool.
And then let fans come down and just watch it. And I think something with the Porco family, again, going back to John's family, it's within the family who's done it. I think it's an amazing city. The other one, my kids are in their 20s now, but I can't remember if it was my younger one or my older one. We went down, I think it was Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay,
and Grand Rapids runs a hockey tournament. Every team has to play one game on their outdoor rink just like that.
Yeah.
And the kids thought it was great.
Yeah, and Windsor has one too. Windsor has a beautiful outdoor rink that has a cover on it with the dressing room. So yeah, I'm excited. I think it's a great thing, and it's it's awesome for the city. It really is. That's going to be a great place for people to go, and I do think it's a good thing. I'm excited to check it out. Even
to take your team, midget team down there, like just for practice, right? It'd be something. How many kids get to play outdoors?
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I know that there are. It's not an open rink. I know that they do bill out hourly and those types of things. So that's nice. But I just think I like what they're doing at Mill Market. I really do. I like that they're building that area up. I like that they're trying to turn it into a destination and a tourist attraction. So props to everyone involved there, and can't wait to see it.
After a game, you just hop on the snow train, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Tony, I can't thank you enough for taking this week. Again, we'll be back next week. Already talked to Neil Ovey and Etienne Jacquet when it comes to basketball and soccer recruiting at the OUA level, and I'm going to reach out to a few others. Going to see if Jamie Henderson's available about recruiting, about the U18 hockey, and talk a little bit more about recruiting in these times because. Yeah. We all thought back in April 2020 that by October this wasn't going to be around. And now it's January 2021. I still think we're going to be here come April.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think so too. I'm a frontline worker, and we haven't heard a thing yet about vaccinations or anything. So we'll have to wait and see where we're at. But
if it was up to Boomer Brado, he would just have the vaccinations at his bar so we could go in and have a beer at the same time. And I think that'd be perfect, right?
I like it. Maybe in a couple of weeks, if Chris apologizes, we can even bring him on here for a quick little segment. So
he told me that they have a really good coaching staff. And by the way, he still doesn't paint. So
too good.
Yeah. So
all right.
Tony, well, thanks a lot. And I'm really excited about the sports talk every Monday night at 7:00 on Saultsports.com. And just a little plug: if anybody is interested in coming aboard as a sponsor or partner, reach out to me or Tony on social media or by email, and we'll talk soon, Tony.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.